Chapter 10. The Straight Sword Under the Moon. The sharp, broken shaft pierced through the monster's brain, snuffing out its life force completely. But even in death, the momentum of its leap continued. Its massive body plummeted like a cannonball, crashing into me with full force, knocking me to the ground. Honestly, the only reason I managed to kill that beast was because of my enhanced dynamic vision and the divine power of the seraphim. My physical strength hadn't increased at all, and this creature had to weigh at least 200 kilograms. I couldn't break free quickly with just my own strength. On top of that, the moment I used the seraphim's power, I felt completely drained, like all my energy had been sucked out of me. My body was weak, and I was starting to feel dizzy. And just then, the second monster, which had been hiding in the shadows, moved. The hunter, who had been lurking in the distance, finally revealed its hideous fangs. It sprinted on all fours, weaving through the flickering streetlights, its shadow dancing like a twisted specter, with a long, blood-red tongue writhing unnervingly. I could see its every movement, but in my current state, there was no way I could dodge it. I could only watch as those sharp fangs rapidly grew larger in my vision. Just as the monster was about 2 meters away from me, my pupils suddenly contracted. In my field of vision, I sensed something or someone approaching even faster than the monster. Could it be a person? A real human? Swish. Everything blurred for a moment, and then a figure dropped down from the night sky, landing gracefully on the ground. The wind stirred up by their descent blew back a dark red cloak, revealing the side profile of a middle-aged man. He wasn't particularly handsome nor ugly, just the kind of man you'd see anywhere on the street, someone you'd naturally overlook. But the killing intent in his eyes was as sharp and blinding as a sword. He crouched slightly, eyes locked on the monster that was now less than a meter away, his right hand gripping the hilt of a sword on his back. Clang! The sound of metal rang out as the blade left its sheath. The pale blue blade, reflecting the dim moonlight, sliced through the air, aiming straight ahead in complete silence. It was a simple, straight sword. The blade of the sword traced a crescent arc, clashing with the monster's claws, sending a shower of sparks into the night. The man let out a low growl, his muscles tensing as he stepped forward with a powerful lunge. The monster, as large as a grizzly bear, was forced back several steps. I stared in disbelief. I'd fought this monster myself. I knew just how terrifying its strength was. But this man, who was he? How could he push it back like that? After forcing the monster back, the man's movements became even more fluid. His steps were like a shadow, sticking to the monster, while his sword slashed repeatedly, leaving deep, gaping wounds on its body. The monster howled in pain, its eyes glaring at the man with venomous hatred. It raised its long, spear-like forelimb, intending to skewer the man who dared defy it. But before it could strike, 2 quick flashes of the sword cut through the air, severing its forelimb cleanly. The monster didn't even have time to scream. The man's eyes flashed with a cold light, and in one swift motion, he sliced his sword across the monster's neck. The pale blue blade effortlessly cut through flesh and bone. In the next moment, the monster's head was sent flying, tumbling to the ground. Click! The sword returned to its sheath. The dark red cloak was now soaked in the monster's blood. But because the colors were so similar, you'd hardly notice unless you looked closely. Without even glancing at the monster's corpse, the man calmly pulled out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and took a deep drag. Then he reached for his walkie-talkie. The 2 rogue specters have been eliminated. Send the cleanup crew. After finishing the message, he stashed the walkie-talkie and slowly approached me, who had just managed to free myself from under the monster's body. I stood there quietly, watching him, and he did the same, his eyes never leaving mine. Under the moonlight, beside the pool of blood, the 2 of us just silently stared at each other. After what felt like an eternity, he finally broke the silence, unable to hold back any longer. So, did I look cool just now? I was speechless. I stared into his eyes for a moment, realizing he was serious. With a sigh, I answered, "Yeah, you were cool." "That's what I thought," he grinned. "Want to learn how to be as cool as me?" "No. Why not?" "Too risky." I answered seriously. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. "But you saw it yourself. You've got this supernatural power, something most people only dream of. Don't you want to be a superhero like in the movies?" "No. Because it's too risky?" "Exactly. He rubbed his temples, clearly frustrated. The kid in front of him seemed hard to deal with, but he was already caught up in this mess, and the kid had such incredible power. Alright, this isn't the best place for a chat. Let's move somewhere else and talk things over. He thought for a moment, then added, by the way, my name is Zhao Kongqing, and I'm not a bad guy. Lin Xie, I said, blinking innocently and nodding. I believe you. Just wait here. I need to grab my backpack. My study materials are still in there. Go ahead. Zhao Kongqing waved me off helplessly, plopping down on the curb with a cigarette still dangling from his lips. He was feeling a little annoyed. Most people would be scared out of their minds by now, but this kid was still thinking about his study materials. And the worst part? He actually turned me down. Damn it, I went all out back there. Those moves, those clean cuts, so damn stylish. I didn't even put that much effort into sparring with the captain. Speaking of which, I wonder how the captain's doing. The Spectre King isn't easy to handle. Zhao Kongqing sat on the curb, smoking and lost in thought. Lost in thought. Wait a second, something's not right. Zhao Kongqing suddenly snapped out of it, took half a second to process, then sprang to his feet, frantically scanning the area. But the kid was gone. He stood there, stunned for a good 10 seconds, his mouth hanging open in disbelief at what had just happened. Damn it, the kid ran off? Bro, why are you back so late today? Yang Jin looked at me, clearly puzzled. And where's your cane? I slipped off my shoes and forced a smile. Ran into some trouble on the way back, ended up losing it. To avoid Yang Jin seeing the fresh wound near my temple, I quickly wrapped the black cloth around my head again. As for the cane, it was broken, and I figured it was better to toss it than to worry my family. No big deal, we can get another one. So, did you deal with the problem? Yeah, it's handled. Blackie, our little mutt, waddled over from the balcony, nuzzling against my leg before rolling onto its back, showing me its belly. I sighed and crouched down, rubbing its belly as I asked, is Annie back yet? Mom's on the night shift tonight. She'll be back in the morning. All right, have you finished your homework? Just a little left to do. Man, they sure pile on the homework in middle school. It's crazy, I grumbled, getting back to my feet. Don't worry about it too much. If it's stressing you out, just leave it. If the teacher gets mad, I'll talk to them. Yang Jin smiled, nodding. I'll be done soon. I nodded back. I'm wiped out. I'm gonna hit the hay. You should get some rest once you're done too. Okay. Dragging my tired body, I headed to my room. Just as I was about to close the door, Yang Jin's voice called out again. Bro, are you sure everything's okay? Yeah, everything's fine. Get some sleep. Oh, and there's milk in the fridge. If you're up early, warm some up for yourself. Got it, bro. Good night. Good night. I gently closed the door, and Yang Jin stood outside, holding Blackie, silently watching the door to my room. Yang Jin softly stroked Blackie's head. You noticed it too, huh? Woof. He looked up at the dim moonlight outside the window, murmuring to himself, there's a smell of blood on him. Chapter 11. The Mysterious Hospital. Lin Xie was truly exhausted, both mentally and physically. He hadn't expected that on his first day at a new school. Things would spiral out of control so quickly, encountering monsters, being betrayed by classmates, engaging in life or death battles, and then waking up to find a superhero-like figure sneaking away. Lin Xie wasn't stupid. He knew that what happened tonight was definitely related to the hidden side of this world, the monster with a human face, the golden light emerging from his body, and the man who single-handedly took down the monster. That man was no ordinary person. Based on how he communicated over the radio, there had to be a huge organization behind him, one that was probably hidden from the public and specialized in dealing with such bizarre events. He must have seen the light on my body and maybe even witnessed me taking down the monster, which is why he wanted to recruit me. It's not that I'm not curious about the hidden world. I want to understand what I encountered tonight and what's happening to me. But I don't want to get dragged into this vortex just because of my curiosity. Some secrets, once learned, are impossible to escape. I don't want to be some hero protecting humanity. What I want to protect is my home. Before long, he drifted off to sleep. The familiar mist descended once again. In the dream, Lin Xie looked around inside in resignation. Seriously? Even when I'm asleep, I still get monsters knocking at my door. My luck is terrible. He moved with practiced ease, and soon, the outline of a mental hospital appeared before him. An ancient plaque on the right side bore a large inscription, God's Mental Hospital. Lin Chia approached the door and stopped, reaching for the round ring on the door. Just as his fingertips touched the ring, the entire ground trembled slightly. The surrounding mist suddenly churned. Lin Chia held onto the ring, bewildered. What's going on? I haven't even knocked yet, and it's already shaking? It wasn't like this before. A sudden thought struck him like lightning. Could it be because I opened my eyes today? Lin Chia looked down at his dream body, his eyes starting to brighten. In the past, his body in the dream was semi-transparent, like a wisp of mist, fragile and barely there. But today, his body seemed much more solid, though still not quite tangible. He lifted his head sharply, gazing at the door that had blocked him for 5 years with renewed intensity. Maybe today is the day. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the ring tightly and rammed it against the door. Clang! An ancient bell tolled from inside the mental hospital, much louder than before. Luckily, Lin Chia didn't have a physical body now, or the sound would have painfully assaulted his eardrums. As the bell rang, the entire hospital trembled violently again. This is it. Lin Chia's eyes lit up. Clang! 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 Lin Chia didn't stop. He pounded the door 3 more times, and the hospital shook like it was experiencing an earthquake. Finally, after the last knock, a tremendous noise erupted from within the hospital. Then everything fell silent once more. Just as Lin Chia was about to knock again, the front door let out a dull creak and began to move slowly. The door was opening. Vroom thud. Once the door was fully open, a dark, ancient corridor appeared before Lin Chia. The floor of the corridor was made of some glowing material, and the walls were lined with burning orbs, creating a mysterious and eerie atmosphere. Lin Chia walked down the corridor and soon reached an intersection. A modern sign hanging above the junction read, Left, patient rooms, right, recreation area. Lin Chia muttered, This layout is exactly the same as the mental hospital I stayed at years ago. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to explore the recreation area first. The recreation area had a few rooms, but was well equipped. There was a multimedia room for watching TV and movies, a lounge for playing chess and other games, a study for reading and learning, and even an open circular lawn inside, with various sports equipment scattered around. It's just as I remember. This dream is really strange. Lin Chia frowned and shook his head in confusion. After finishing his tour of the recreation area, he turned back and headed towards the patient rooms. When he reached the entrance to the patient room area, Lin Chia suddenly stopped. This place is different, he murmured as he looked at the dark, monotonous corridor ahead. He clearly remembered that in the Sunshine Mental Hospital, the patient rooms were spread over several floors. Though the facilities weren't high-end, they were at least clean and tidy. But the patient room area before him had only 1 floor and 6 rooms. Each room's door was covered in strange symbols and patterns, densely packed as if sealing something. Just looking at them made Lin Chia feel dizzy. He forced himself to look away from the doors and steadied his nerves, looking elsewhere. In the upper right corner of the corridor, an old doorplate was hanging. Each room had a different symbol on its doorplate. For example, Room 1 had a large black circle on its doorplate. Room 2's doorplate depicted something resembling a staff or a pin. Lin Chia walked down the corridor to the final Room 6, still unsure of what the symbols meant. He stared at the eerie door and fell into deep thought. In this dream hospital, only the patient room area was different from the Sunshine Mental Hospital he remembered. So, are there really patients in these rooms? Or, as the hospital's name suggests, are there gods inside? Lin Chia hesitated for a moment before slowly reaching for the doorknob of Room 6. It wasn't that he was reckless. On one hand, this was his dream. Even if something went wrong, it wouldn't have a significant impact. On the other hand, he had knocked on this hospital door day after day for 5 years. He didn't want to leave without any answers. Moreover, his subconscious felt that there might be some secret related to him in this hospital. Otherwise, why would it be set up exactly like the Sunshine Mental Hospital he once stayed at? As Lin Chia's hand approached, he felt a cool sensation from the doorknob. There was no repulsion or pain as he naturally gripped the handle. He pulled hard. The door remained motionless. He braced himself and pulled again with all his might. Still no movement. Lin Chia gave up on this door and moved to Room 5, trying to pull that door. No luck. He moved to Room 4, then Room 3, and finally Room 2. Lin Xie tried each door in turn, none of which would open, until he reached room 1. With a sense of inevitable failure, Lin Xie gave the door of room 1 a strong tug. Click! A faint sound came from the doorknob, and the intricate patterns and symbols on the door cracked and gradually dissipated into the air. Lin Xie was startled, stepping back a few paces and staring intently ahead. The door opened,